How to light a large space. Large spaces are one of the most difficult things a cinematographer has to do because you have to consider a lot of things. You need a lot of gear and a lot of knowledge about the creation of a room and controlling a light. Now we're looking at this classroom scenario, and as you can see, we have this big white window source, and this is a commercial. So we have probably a 10-hour shoot, but our light has to be 10 hours consistently. So how do we work something out that we get an even and controlled lighting setup across the whole day? First things first, what you would do probably is black everything out. What I mean with that, I draw something for you here. Imagine from the top, this is the window, and now you build a black box across the whole scenery where the topper is around here. It goes a few meters back and then it drops. So the whole scenery is just black. With that, we eliminated every light source that come into the scene and would change the levels on the scenery. That's the first thing you do. And on a space like this, you need a lot of combo stands, C-stands, Moltone. And this already is expensive, takes a lot of time, so you need a larger crew for it. Then after that, you always want to simulate the look of a window. So what you do under that setup you build, you put a lot of butterflies, 12 by 12, 8 by 8, it depends on the size and space you have. And you put a lot of them into a line, and of each of them, you put a really powerful source or multiple and bounce them into the scenery. With this technique, you get an even consistent lines across the whole shoot. But as I said before, really expensive, takes a lot of time. For the most of our projects, not possible. When you're in a classroom like this, always turn off these lights. I want not one single of them on, because they're always on this really weird temperature, like 4100, have this mix of cold, and sometimes a few of them are 3200, sometimes they're 6000, and you can't control the lights. It looks really unprofessional, and you don't want that in your life. So just turn everything off, just control it with your lights. Probably you will notice the ground exposure of the room would get really dark really fast, because this is the reason we have this power out here. We can control the whole fill in the room. And when you're going for the close-up, it's most of the time even easier, because we look at the scene and we want to make more fill. I would put an Aputure 600, 1200 with a spot mount, and you blast the spot onto the ceiling, but you build a circle or a rectangle where you just form with the controls on the side just some kind of softbox overhang, so they get bounce only on this area. Don't just blast your light source into the ceiling and everything gets white and everything's uncontrollable. With a spot mount, you can really more control the area where you want the fill light. But the fill light is the last thing to do. Now you want to get a nice key on this person. So the exposure on here, we try to not clip the background. So we set the camera, choose our exposure, then we drop our actor into it. Not the first thing, we don't choose our exposure on the camera, on the actor, we choose it on the environment. So choose this exposure, everyone says, okay, looks nice, I want to have this kind of dark look, put the actor in, now he needs a key light. This light here is clearly not strong enough, give him this key. So we have to extend the light. Because he's alone into this room, we can really make a big lighting source. Also we can easily put a 6x6 frame, 8x8 frame in here. And then you have to decide, okay, how soft I want to light. How do I want to tell my story? Should it look creamy? Should it be a little bit more dramatic? I think for this kind of scenario, a 6x6 frame with some grid, and then just blast a 600D with maybe a quarter diffusion in front of it, and this should be a half grid cloth, and then you control it with a flag so that you don't bounce into the wall. Should be a nice way to get a good exposure on him and also still get this gritty feeling. Then to counter this light, because it's still a big source, it will get a lot of rep. You have to put a negative fill on the other side as close as possible to suck out this light on this side that bounce around the room, that you get this nice half-lit look. Then after you've done this and you think, it still looks a bit contrasty to me, you put your Aputure spot key light onto the ceiling, and this controls the fill ratio on your face. A nice storytelling trick they've done here, most of the time if you have two characters that talk to each other, you put one of them on this side of the frame, and then on the other shot, you will probably put him here. But what they've done here is they put the negative space on the other side and the characters pretty close to the edge of the frame. The reason why they do this is always it creates a more tense feeling, like the characters are closer to each other. It's more intimidating because they won't let the other person have a space. So this is a really interesting way to mix up a little bit of your compositing so that the composition, so that the audience just feels, oh, this is something more creative, something more better, because everything that is most of the time out of the norm would feel for the audience a little bit better quality. Then this scenario we have later in the story, and as you can see, we have this really cool feeling here. So we go with the exposure and the white balance of the camera to a cooler tone. And then what I did here, they turned on this little car lamp here, which has a really warm color, which breaks a little bit the atmosphere of the shots. You always have, when you want everything to feel cold, you need a little bit of counterbalance. Otherwise, it just feels washed out, and it's a really nice way to do it. It's just a subtle way. And also search for things to shoot through. This always creates nice depth, and also it creates nice compositing, storytelling, because now we know, okay, they drove a car and now they're here, and this is where they're set before, and it tells this guy drove and he was just with him. And overall, it's a nice composition. You could also make your establishing shot just outside, but I think this looks way cooler. So if you enjoyed this video, I really would appreciate a subscription from you. My name is Marco Bagnoli, and see you next time.